How are you guys doing? Today is Monday, June 28th, 2021. This is The Elite. I'm James Sims, and for this episode, I'm going to do an individual profile on Bradley Beal. The Elite starting shooting guard for the Washington Wizards turns 28 today, and with this episode, I plan on giving a little bit of context, of course, going through his accomplishments, accolades, and achievements from the moment where he has hit the national spotlight, the global spotlight, up until this very moment, to give just context and understanding as to why many people regard him as one of the best shooting guards in basketball today, and why I regard him as one of the elite NBA or one of the elite basketball players that the world has to offer for the 2021 calendar year. So if you're not familiar with him, he stands at about 6'3", and if you're not familiar with, that's kind of compared to the average NBA player, that's relatively short. He's very skilled. He's a very slithery basketball player. He's an amazing jump shooter, an amazing volume scorer, and of course he makes a lot of the teammates around him better. Very athletic, of course, amazing defender. I know he is a great defender. I talk about his offense a lot. He's just a very well-rounded two-way basketball player who's coming off just an amazing season. So just to give a little bit of background, he's originally from St. Louis, Missouri. He would establish himself as the best prospect in Missouri. He would be Mr. Show Me Basketball, which is the award that's given to the best player in Missouri because Missouri is the Show Me state. He was named a McDonald's All-American. And after being named the Gatorade National Player of the Year, he would commit to playing at Florida under Billy Donovan. And under his only season at Florida, he would play in 2011-2012. He would start all 37 games that he would play in a season where Florida would end up losing in the Elite Eight. But regardless, Bradley Beal would have himself a season. He would average 15 points a game nearly, shooting 45% from the field. He would go on to shoot 34% from three and 77% from the line. He averaged 6.7 rebounds, 2.2 assists, 1.4 steals as well. And after his incredible season at Florida and a season where they wouldn't get to the very end, he would be taken with the third overall pick in the 2012 NBA draft, a draft in which the only all-star that was taken ahead of him was Anthony Davis. Damian Lillard and Andre Drummond were also taken in the lotteries of that draft, just to give a little bit of context as who was there right in front of him and right behind him. And ever since he started playing, and ever since he's been with the Wizards, he's been just a virtuoso, just every single year on and off the court. So when he would first arrive there in Washington, it would be his age 19 season in 2012-2013. And in this season, he would start 46 of the 56 games he would play, in a season in which the Washington Wizards finished with a 29-53 record, which was actually 9 wins better than they had won the previous season. And I believe John Wall was on the team by the time Bradley Beal had gotten there. But regardless, in this season, he would average 31 minutes a game. He's averaged 30 minutes a game in every single season since he's been in the league. So, of course, kudos to him. He would average 14 points per game while shooting 41% from the field, 39% from three, and 79% from the foul line on the season, while averaging 3.8 rebounds, 2.4 assists, 0.9 steals, and half a block a game. He would go on to make the all-rookie first team, and many people were starting to recognize him as at least a good and growing young talent. Following that, Bradley Beal would come back to Washington for his second season in 2013-2014, his age 20 season. And by that time, he was a full-time starter for the Wizards. He established himself as a starter his first season, but He started every single game in his sophomore season and his age 20 season. He would start all 73 of the games he would play in a season where the Wizards would finish with a 44-38 record. They won 15 more games than the previous season and finished with the fifth best record in the East, where they would qualify for the playoffs. In this season, while averaging 34 minutes a game, he saw himself averaging 3.5 more minutes. He saw himself averaging 17 points a game, which is a 3-point increase from the previous season, all while shooting 42% from the field, what he was doing the previous season. He shot 40% from three for the first time in his career, and he shot 79% from the foul line. He averaged 30.7 rebounds, which is what he was doing before. He averaged 3.3 assists, which was an assist more than what he did before. And he averaged just about a steal the first time he actually eclipsed the 1 steal number, and ever since, he's averaged a steal a game since. And that was all the way back in 2014, all the way back when the Spurs beat the Heat and ended the Heat's chance at a three-peat. But following that 2013-14 season, the Washington Wizards would end up beating the Bulls they would end up beating the Bulls in 5. That would end up being their first playoff series win since 2005. And then they would end up losing in the conference semifinals to the Pacers before the Pacers lost to the Heat before the Pacers lost to the Spurs. Following his second season, Beal would come back for his age 21 season in 2014-15. He would start 59 of the 63 games that he would play in a season where the Washington Wizards would finish with a 46-36 record. They finished with 2 more wins than the previous season, finishing with the 5th best record in the East for the second year in a row. While averaging 33 minutes a game in his age 21 season, Beal would see his scoring numbers drop down a bit from 17 to 15, all while shooting 42% from the field, 41% from 3, and 78% from the line, roughly what he was doing before, while averaging 3.8 rebounds, 3 assists, and 1.2 steals per game. Following that 2014-15 season, in the playoffs, they would end up sweeping the Raptors in the first round, and they would end up losing in the conference semifinals to the Hawks when the Hawks had a crazy year, when the Hawks got bounced out by LeBron James and the Cavaliers. But following that 2014-15 season, Bradley Beal would start to see his role increase a little bit more, because in his third year, many people saw him kind of fall into like a Robin role. But in 2015-16, in a season that was actually kind of plagued a little bit by injury, he would start 35 of the 55 games he would play in a season where the Wizards would go on to finish with a 41-41 record. They would win 5 less games than they would the previous season, and then they would finish with the 10th best record in the East, which would not be good enough for them to make the playoffs. But in the season that he played, in the games that he played, he will go on to average 17.4 points, the highest point per game that he would average up until that point, while shooting 45% from the field, the highest field goal percentage he shot. He shot 38% from 3. He would shoot 76% from the line as well, while averaging 3.4 rebounds, 2.9 assists, and just over a steal. Following that season, like I said, they wouldn't make the playoffs, and after that, Bradley Beal would really come back for a vengeance. And after those 4 seasons, Bradley Beal would go on to average at least 20 points a game since then. In his 5th season in the league, his 5th season with Washington in 2016-17, his age 23 season, Bradley Beal would start all 77 games that he would play in a season where the Washington Wizards would finish with the best record in the Southeast Division, 4th best record in the East with a 49-33 record. That would be the best record that the Wizards have posted since Bradley Beal has actually been on the team. So, of course, that was a big feat for the Wizards. This is when Paul Pierce was on the team as well. While averaging 35 minutes a game, Bradley Beal would see his points per game shoot up from 17 to 23.1 points per game. That would be a career high at that point. While shooting 48% from the field at that point, that was a career high as well. He shot 40% from 3 as well, while shooting 7 threes per game, which is more than two more than he did the previous season. And he did all this while shooting 82% from the line as well. So he saw his his volume scoring really starting to increase and really kind of hit that all-star level. He would average 3.1 rebounds and 3.5 assists, averaging just over a steal as well. And in this season, he would not be named an all-star, but following this year, they would go on to beat the Hawks in the first round, and they would end up losing to the Boston Celtics in the very next round. And 2017 was the season where the Warriors would beat the Cavs after they added Kevin Durant, for just a little bit more context. Following that 2016-17 season, Bradley Beal would return to the Washington Wizards for what would be his sixth season, his age 24 season. And in his age 24 season in 2017-18, he would go on to start all 82 games for the very first time in his career. In his very first All-Star season, in a season where he would see his minutes jump up to 36 minutes a game, he would see his points per game stay roughly about the same, dip down a little bit to 22.6 from 23.1, all while shooting 46% from the field, 37% from three, and 79% from the foul line. All percentages were ticks lower than what he did the previous season, but of course he had received the attention for it now. And following the 2017-18 season, they would go on to finish with the 8th best record in the Eastern Conference, and they would lose in the very first round to the Raptors right before the Raptors got beat by LeBron James in the 2018 playoffs off of that runner off the glass, for a little bit more context. And following the 2017-18 season, and following Bradley Beal's very first season in the league in which he was named an All-Star, he would come back to the Washington Wizards in 2018-19 for his 7th season. He would start 82 games for the second season in a row while leading the NBA in minutes per game, averaging 36.9 minutes per game. Season 7 with Washington, and he would go on to make his second All-Star appearance, as you would see his points per game jump up from 22.6 to 25.6, all while shooting 47% from the field, 35% from three, and 80% from the foul line, roughly what he was doing around that time, which are all still incredibly good percentages to shoot from threes still. And he would go on to average 5 rebounds per game, the most rebounds that Bradley Beal has ever averaged in a season in his career. He averaged 5.5 assists, which is the most assists he'd ever averaged in a season up until that point. He averaged 1.5 steals as well, which is the most steals he's ever put up as well, as he put up a very high production season in his second 82-game season. And all of this in a season where the Wizards finished with a 32-50 record. They finished with the 11th best record in the East and completely missed out on the playoffs. But following the 2019 season, like I said, he would be recognized for his talents and be named to his second NBA All-Star game in his career. Following the 2018-19 campaign, Bradley Beal will come back for his 8th season in his 2019-20 campaign, his age 26 season. He would start all 57 of the games he would play in a shortened season that was, of course, impacted by COVID, in which the Washington Wizards finished with a 25-47 record. Their win percentage was worse than what it was the previous season, so of course they had backtracked a little, and of course they were dealing with John Wall's injury woes. But in his age 26 season, Bradley Beal would miss the he would miss the All-Star team for the first time since 2007. He would average 36 minutes, as he would actually see his points increase from 25.6 to 30.5. I think he'd average the most points in a half season and up until a playoff break and not be named to a playoff team. So I think that record belongs to him. He averaged 30.5 points while shooting 45% from the field, 35% from three, and 85% from the foul line. That was the highest free throw percentage he'd ever shoot in his career up until that point, all while averaging 4.2 rebounds and 6.1 assists. The 6.1 assist is a career high for him up until this point, and he was able to average 1.2 steals as well. Following the 2019-20 season, like I said, the Wizards would miss out on the bubble as well. And following the 2019-2020 season, actually, no, I think the Wizards did play in the bubble, but they would completely miss out on the playoffs. Following the 2019-2020 season, he would return to the Wizards for his ninth season, this most recent 2020-2021 season, a season in which he played all 60 games in an all-star campaign, in which he helped the Washington Wizards finish with a 34-38 record, the eighth best record in the Eastern Conference after he was able to acquire one of the greatest teammates of all time in Russell Westbrook, the all-time NBA leading triple-doubles leader. In the 60 games he played with the Washington Wizards this season, he would average 36 minutes a game, what he's been averaging ever since he's been an all-star. He would average 31.3 points per game while shooting 48.5% from the field, all while shooting 35% from three, and he would shoot 89% from the foul line. The 48.5% from the field would be the highest he'd ever shoot in his career, and the 88.9% from the foul line would be the highest he'd ever shoot in his career from the foul line as well. He did all this while averaging 4.7 rebounds and 4.4 assists and 1.2 steals. In addition to being named an All-Star for the third time in his career, he would be named to the All-NBA third team for the first ever time in his career. And after being named to the All-NBA team, I think is most definitely necessary to give Bradley Beal an elite profile for the 2021 year. Even though his year is completely over, it's very possible that he can add teammates to his arsenal moving forward. He very well could change teams. He's been on the Washington Wizards for 9 years, and nobody would blame him if he left. But looking at the player that he is right now, he is a 3-time NBA All-Star in the last 4 years in a very competitive league, and he was recognized as a top 15 player in the NBA this year with as many 20-point players as there were in the NBA this year. He finished second in the league in scoring as well. He was one of 2 players this year to average 30 points. Not to mention that he's been just this level player since he was a McDonald's All-American and people knew who he was back then. But with that said, I want to thank, first off, I want to thank ESPN, Wikipedia, Bleacher Report, and the Basketball Reference website for giving me the stats and figures to do this. I want to wish Bradley Beal a happy 28th birthday. Of course, because he is entering his age 28 season, which for a lot of players is like their peak season, like their best season ever. So I really look forward to seeing what Bradley Beal puts forward for this upcoming season as I expect greatness from him. And between now and his 29th birthday, I expect him to at least give me something to talk about. With that said, I want to thank everyone for listening to this piece. I hope all is well, and I will catch you with another episode once all of today's episodes are done and once I can come back tomorrow. But until then, peace out. And until then, thanks for listening to this piece. Peace out. Don't forget to be elite.